So, as Original Sin comes to an end, we see the series conclude with issue number 8. Now, the issue here with Original Sin, and one of the big criticisms that a lot of us in the Marvel community had, is that Original Sin raised just as many questions as it answered, and Marvel didn't really do a good job of answering a lot of these questions that cropped up. What we're also going to do here in this discussion is we're going to, for the most part, focus on Nick Fury's involvement with regards to the Watcher. We're going to focus on what it was that took place, and we're going to learn the truth about what happened with Nick Fury and what happened with the Watcher when Nick Fury arrived on the moon. And what we see here as the story opens up is a transition into the past, into a few days prior to the current events of the Original Sin event. And we see that Nick Fury has arrived after the Watcher has been robbed. And Nick Fury asked the Watcher who it was that robbed him, that how this happened. Now he says that the issue here is that the Watcher is in possession of a vast collection of weaponry, a vast collection of armament, that the Watcher sees everything, and so he knows most likely who it was that robbed him and where they're going, but that if they take these weapons from the Watcher's armory, if they take things like the Ultimate Nullifier and various weapons of Badoon origin, and they fall into the wrong hands, that it could lead to total destruction of the planet Earth. It could lead to a conflict on a scale never seen before. And so he says that the Watcher needs to explain what it is that's going on. The Watcher needs to tell him what it was this happened. What we also see here is that Nick Fury says that because the Watcher sees everything, that it's the Watcher's duty, that despite the fact the Watcher doesn't necessarily involve himself in various events all the time, that this is one event whereby the Watcher needs to take some kind of action. But the Watcher simply replies by saying that Nick Fury is correct, that the Watcher does see all things, even the unseen. And this is when he reveals to Nick Fury the fact that he can see everything, or has seen everything that Nick Fury has done regarding his actions of fighting various multidimensional beings, of killing various multidimensional beings, of killing beings within the planet Earth. And this upsets Nick Fury, this angers Nick Fury. And the reason why is because Nick Fury tells the Watcher that he's always acted on the side of the planet Earth, that he's always fought to save the planet Earth, but that the Watcher always just watched, that very rarely did he ever actually step in and do anything, despite the fact that he had the power to stop it, that virtually any conflict that could have arisen as a result of these alien forces appearing, had Nick Fury not been there to stop them, was something that the Watcher could have helped with. The Watcher could have acted in such a way to where it wasn't necessary for Nick Fury to be the man on the wall, but instead the Watcher never did. The Watcher simply just watched, and Nick Fury is angry about this. And what this does is this gives us this dichotomy, this inherent, difference between Nick Fury and the Watcher. That Nick Fury's belief system here is that it's not enough to simply just watch. It's not enough to simply just observe. There has to be somebody that's going to actively oppose threats. And so Nick Fury views himself as the true protector of the Earth, as the one person who actually did anything to ensure the Earth was kept as safe as possible. And that the Watcher, despite the fact that he never really did anything, had the power to do it but never did, always chose not to. And so for him, the Watcher is a representation of total apathy, of an individual that has the power to stop something, but chooses not to. And so what we see is that Nick Fury again begins to shout at the Watcher. Nick Fury tells the Watcher who it is, or asks the Watcher who it is that stole from him, about what it is that happened here, and about who it is that he has to kill next. From here, we see that again, Nick Fury asks the Watcher why it is that they took his eye, why it is that they took the eyes within his head. And he says that for the most part, he searched this place over and over again, that he has looked within this place time and time again, that even when the Watcher had passed out and he had bugged the Watcher's watchtower in order to keep an eye on him, that the one thing that he never noticed, the one thing that he never saw the Watcher doing, was recording things physically. The Watcher was never writing anything down. The Watcher was simply just observing all the time. And so Nick Fury deduces that most likely all the knowledge and everything the Watcher has ever seen has been stored within his eyes, that the reason why one of his eyes was taken is because it possesses a multitude of secrets. Now, whether or not that eye possesses all the same secrets as the other eye is actually a question that Marvel doesn't answer. But for the most part, because both eyes saw the same thing, that seems to be the case, and so that would explain why both eyes weren't taken from the Watcher. From here, we see Nick Fury pointing his gun at the Watcher, and again, telling the Watcher to answer him, telling the Watcher to tell him what it is that he saw, what it is or who it was that came in and stole his place, stole his stuff. And the Watcher simply just says that he's seen too much, that he's seen too many things, and that it's time for somebody else to watch, that it's time for somebody else to undertake the role of the mantle of Watcher. We see that the Watcher begins to raise his hands against Nick Fury, and that he appears to be emanating some kind of energy, and that perhaps he may be putting Nick Fury in a place where he's going to force Nick Fury to shoot him, where he is, in effect, going to commit suicide by cop. But what we see as the story continues is that we transition back to the present day, and what we see is that the superheroes, Doctor Strange, Hank Pym, Emma Frost, and various other individuals have arrived to aid Nick Fury in his fight against the Mindless Ones and Dr. Midas, who of course are laying siege to the Watcher's watchtower and Nick Fury respectively. And what we see Doctor Strange saying is that this is all going to come to an end now, that all of this is going to end. We also see that Nick Fury says that he thinks they're here because they've seen the truth in what it is that he's said and what it is that needs to be done, that there has to be somebody to be the man on the wall, that he regrets the fact that he has to pass this burden off to one of these superheroes, that somebody is going to have to undertake this role, but for him, it's a necessity. It's something that needs to be done so that the rest of the superheroes can turn a blind eye, so that they can keep their hands clean, but so that they can also deal with whatever is left over, whatever it is that the man on the wall is not able to stop. But what we also see Doctor Strange saying is that they haven't come here to redeem Nick Fury. They came here because Nick Fury has one last sin that he has to confess to, and Doctor Strange demands to hear it. Doctor Strange demands to hear what it is that Nick Fury did to the Watcher, and Nick Fury finally, after the entire original sin event, admits it. Nick Fury says that he was the one who killed the Watcher. But what we see is that for the most part, it appears that the Watcher had put Nick Fury in a position where he had no choice but to kill him, that it was either kill or be killed, that the Watcher didn't really seem to have a desire to live anymore. Now, why it is the Watcher didn't really have a desire to live is, again, something that Marvel doesn't explain to us. It's one of these things that's left open. But I would go as far as to speculate that after the events of Original Sin issue number 0, where we had learned that Uatu the Watcher was looking for any reality that existed whereby his father's actions didn't contribute to the destruction of the civilization they had first encountered, had never existed, that he was never able to find this, that he had for the most part just kind of given up, that he just didn't really seem to have a reason to live anymore. And so we see that once Nick Fury kills the Watcher, that Nick Fury takes his eye. From here, we pick up with Bucky Barnes confronting Nick Fury, and Bucky Barnes tells Nick Fury to simply put the eyeball down, but Nick Fury says that it's not finished yet, that this isn't done, that Dr. Midas is still within the stronghold, and that he's gaining power, and that somebody needs to stop him, and that Nick Fury thinks he's the only one who can. Nick Fury says that this is his final act, this is his final way to save the Earth, his final action in the role of the man on the wall, and he hopes that Bucky Barnes will one day recognize what it is that he's done here, that Bucky Barnes will recognize the necessity of what it is that has to be done here, and that maybe Bucky Barnes will be the one to undertake the role of the man on the wall. From here, we see that Nick Fury enters the domain of the Watcher's watchtower and confronts Dr. Midas, and Dr. Midas appears to be absorbing some sort of energy from the Watcher, or from the Watcher's watchtower, seems to be emanating some sort of force. Now, how it is that he gains this is something we don't really know. It just simply appears to be that he's absorbing whatever cosmic energies have been channeled through this place. And so what we see is that Dr. Midas simply says that if Nick Fury hands the eyes over to him, then he promises Nick Fury that he won't have to watch what happens next, that he will not let Nick Fury see whatever it is that has taken place. Now, whether this is some kind of taunt saying that he's just going to kill Nick Fury or what, we don't really know. But before we get into what it is that Dr. Midas actually does, we end up transitioning to the orb. And what we see is that the orb is, being taken over by one of the eyes of the Watcher. The Watcher's eye is merging itself with him. But what we also see here is that all these different Watchers are watching this event take place. And the Watchers say that it's their sacred vow, that all they can do is observe, that they can't act, despite the fact that it's within their power to do so. But what we also see is that all these other superheroes are continuing to fight. All these other superheroes are continuing to take on the mindless ones, but for the most part, they really can't. They really can't understand what it is that's going on here. They really can't fathom what it is that's taking place here. All this that's going on with regards to Dr. Midas using the Watcher's power, Nick Fury's actions, the Watchers observing what's going on, and the orb, I guess, being taken over by one of the eyes of the Watcher, is all way above the head of a multitude of these superheroes. And so what we see Nick Fury doing is that, again, as he transitions into the past, telling us that he had no choice, that it all had to be worth it for him, that he took the eyes of the Watcher, or took the eye of the Watcher under the guise that he would be able to find who it was that had killed the Watcher, or had robbed the Watcher in the first place, and continued to fulfill his role of the man on the wall, and that the Watcher's eye would go towards him being able to do his job in a way that he had never experienced before, that he would be able to see almost all the forces that were intending to attack the planet Earth, and that he wouldn't have to rely on investigation or the normal means of finding who these aliens were, or the standard practice of whatever it was that S.H.I.E.L.D. used for their intelligence gathering. And so what we see is that as we continue with this story, that Dr. Midas gets the eye of the Watcher plunged into his chest as Nick Fury attempts to kill him. And for the most part, it seems that the power within the eye of the Watcher is able to totally override any power that Dr. Midas has. And as the superheroes are gathering outside of the Watcher's watchtower, they simply say that whoever it is that comes out of this, that whoever it is that shows up after all this is said and done, that they take down hard, that they're going to ensure that whatever it is that they're doing, that it's stopped. But we see that Bucky Barnes says that, again, kind of mirroring the sentiment of Nick Fury, that they can't just stand here and watch. We see Emma Frost comment that whether or not Bucky Barnes is sure about that, and they look up to see that all these different Watchers are watching this event unfold. From here, we transition back to Dr. Midas, and Dr. Midas is again being overtaken by the power of the Watcher, and the Watcher's eyes, the power is simply just too much for Dr. Midas, is more than his body can handle, and so it appears that his body is entirely disintegrated, that his body is totally destroyed. And so as the comic, or as this begins to wind down, as the comic begins to come to a close, we see that Nick Fury is left next to the body of the Watcher and appears to have been dying, appears to, in fact, die from his wounds suffered after the event of this entire Infinity storyline, this entire Original Sin storyline. From here, we transition back to the superheroes, and the superheroes are simply gathered around the various parts of the Watcher's watchtower and what's left of it after it had been destroyed. And Captain America simply says that the Watcher is dead, that Nick Fury is dead, that all these different things that had taken place are going back to normal. But one thing I would like you to take particular note of is this oversight that was made, I think, by the artists of Original Sin, where Thor is continuing to hold his hammer, despite the fact that Thor has previously been seen, and will actually be seen after this, being unable to wield his hammer. And this, I think, was actually something that was first spotted on Reddit. But what we see Captain America saying is that for the most part, there's really nothing left of Dr. Midas. There's really nothing left of Nick Fury. That after Nick Fury had died, that his satellite full of the LMDs had all just disappeared. That the mindless ones have gone back to being mindless again. That for the most part, everything has gone back to the way it was before the Watcher had died, before anybody had manipulated his eyes. And so for the most part, Captain America has no idea what it is that's going on here. He doesn't know what drove Nick Fury to act this way. And he asked Doctor Strange and Black Panther if they may know. For the most part, what we see here is that Doctor Strange asked Black Panther why it is that he didn't tell Captain America what it is that he knew. And Black Panther says he never tells anyone anything. And he asked Doctor Strange why he didn't tell him. And Doctor Strange says that maybe he will one day. That after this is all said and done, maybe he'll tell Captain America about what's going on. But that after the eyes were used against the superheroes, after their secrets were revealed to each other, that for the most part, nobody trusts anybody. And that they've all become even more secretive than they were before. And that maybe this secret, whatever it is, should die with Nick Fury, that Nick Fury is presumably dead, and that all these things have finally come to a close. But what we see is that there's some individual that's cloaked, that is wrapped in a cowl of some kind, that's simply just standing behind Doctor Strange and Black Panther in a very eerie sort of way. And what we get is this bit of information, or I guess this sort of epilogue telling us what's happened after the original Sin event had come to an end. At this point, we transition back to some sort of alien forces that are discussing the fact that the Watcher has been killed, that various superhero groups are in shambles, and that now is the time for these superheroes, or for the planet Earth, to be conquered and for their forces to invade. But before they're able to get too far, one of them is shot in the face, and we see that Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, has undertaken the role of the Man on the Wall. And this, as Marvel has explained it to us, is the precursor to the Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier solo series, where we're going to follow Bucky Barnes as he is part of as he is the Man on the Wall. And it's actually something that I'm extremely excited about, to see what it is that happens and how his character plays out. From here, we see that as Marvel completely brings the original Sin event to an end, as we get to the very end of this comic, that Marvel tells us that things are winding down, that things are beginning to come to an end, that all these secrets, that all these sins are for the most part beginning to come to a close, and that there is an individual, there is a man that stands on the moon, and that his job is to forever watch, for eternity, to watch but never interfere, to always be unseen. And what we see is that this man is Nick Fury, that Nick Fury is still alive, but seems to be chained to the moon, seems to be chained and stuck to the moon so that he can never leave, and so that for the rest of eternity, he will simply just monitor, he will simply just watch the planet Earth, and that he will never ever be able to be allowed to interfere, that he'll never be able to undertake the role of being the Man on the Wall. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring it into the original Sin event. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.